Hello again. My name is Erin, and this is my mom, Jeannie. We are the co-founders of Bold Living Ministries, and every Tuesday we do a Conversation Corner video based off of questions that are either sent in to us or something that we have learned, and so we try to have a conversation about it. So feel free to jump in and join the conversation through the comments below, or to send in your own questions here or on our Instagram at Bold Living Ministries. Either way, you can do it. Or on our website, boldlivingministries.com. You can do it any of those ways. So on today's episode 10, we're going to be talking about conversation. But it's going to be different than what you might think conversation is. In fact, we learned that it's a lot different. I mean, I thought conversation is what we're doing right now. But it's not. It's not always. And this is really important in relationships that are either established or could be established or are being established. It's important that you get this understanding about what conversation means, because it's going to help you avoid some pitfalls that I know I didn't avoid in my life had I understood this concept better, and you probably could have avoided that. Yeah. So we thought, starting off with the 1828 Webster definition, my mom's going to get that up, would be good, and then translate that into what it also means in the Bible. So I'm going to let my mom take it away from here.
Yeah, the Webster Dictionary, this is the 1828, but it came from the King James Bible. And what it says is a general course of manners, behavior, deportment, especially as it respects morals. And they use the verse, let your conversation be as becometh the gospel. So in that way, that was our first definition. And the fourth definition down was the one that how we use it today is speaking. But it never was that. It was always about how you carried yourself. You didn't
your
hang out
overall
with
character.
In a character way. Not did you build houses or things like that. It was just your basic character that shows through by your actions.
Right, and I noticed that in the definition they used for the example a Bible verse from the King James Bible. We did our study with the King James Bible, just for clarity's sake. If you're using something different and you're like, that's not what this word says.
Yeah, they'll use 2 or 3 different words to make the one. It's used 20 times, actually, in the King James Bible. And every single time, it was exactly that definition. That it was how they were acting, maybe how they used to act versus how they act now.
And we'll have all 20 verses listed
and we'll
in
have
the description.
Which you're welcome to go look. It's a fun little study to do.
So what you're saying then is conversation, what it means in the Bible is just what you just read.
Yeah. Basically, how your actions, what you're doing is really what says, not really speaking. In fact, many times that's the balance is.
Well, and I think this verse right here really makes it so distinctive. If you'd like to read that verse.
1 Timothy 4:12, let no man despise your youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity.
So it's very distinctive.
So very distinctive from in word and in conversation. So it's all the whole enchilada.
Conversation sounds really, cut and dry when we say it that way. Oh, there's the definition. It means this. But it's not in real life, because the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing throw a giant monkey wrench into that. And I know I ran into a wolf in sheep's clothing, and what he would say and what he did weren't equaling up. And essentially what happened was I got so caught up trying to fit 2 puzzles that weren't even from the same the same box together, and it wasn't working. But I got so stuck in that I finally just decided, well, I'll just believe what he says, because I can't reconcile all the other that's going on.
Well, because he wasn't doing anything grossly.
No, and I would address it, and he'd have a really good explanation for it. So I thought, well, he seems really genuine, so I'm sure what he's saying is genuine. It was a bad mistake. Which you can hear about in the video series I'm doing about that. Right. But the point being is that instead of just going, hold the horses, I know what you're saying, But what you're doing or not doing,
Yeah, not doing in that case.
it was questionable. And you keep saying you're going to be doing this, but it's never happening. So for me, his conversation was confusing. And instead of just stepping back and getting clarity and going off of what his actual conversation was, not just what he said, I would have avoided so much. So I think that just kind of shows there can be a positive and a negative conversation.
Right, and if you go through all the verses, which I really think are worthy of going through, you will see the difference, the before and the after.
Which I think you have a Bible verse here that kind of shows what we were just talking about, people who say one thing but do another.
Yeah, Jesus was always going after the religious leaders, the Pharisees. They were always pretending to be nice, well, and sometimes
Pretending
not.
to look good.
They were always looking good and all that, and yet their conversation spoke something totally different, to the point where Jesus said, "You, to the general masses, you do what they tell you to do, because you need to observe those things. That's what you should do, but don't do as they say, but don't do as they do."
The verse she was referencing there is Matthew 23. The whole section is like 1 through 39, but there is a verse, I think that's verse 1, is it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll try and figure out the actual verse.
So, but for our own lives, we have to look at our own lives.
Right, because it's easy to sometimes to look out at other people and be like, oh, well, I can see that their conversation's terrible, good, great, so, whatever. But then we get so focused on looking at the speck in everybody else's life that we forget the giant log
Right.
in our own life.
So, yeah.
So turning it introspectively, what is your conversation?
Right. Does it match what you say?
Mm-hmm.
Does it say, I really care about you, but you never call them, you never talk to them, you never reach out, you never pray for them?
And you could also ask some of your closest friends, like explain conversation to them, and then ask them to give you some helpful insight. That's always another one.
Right, I mean, Erin has helped me on that.
She was just coming off really, like, I knew she was being passionate, but it came off as like an overwhelming, oh my goodness, I can't deal with you right now, to some people. I'm like, Mom, chill.
Yeah, so my actions were actually making it seem like I was that I wasn't even that person, really.
Super
I'm
intense when you were
person,
trying to just be passionate.
And I do care about people, but it just came off wrong. So I had to adjust my conversation.
Yeah, so just think where you can adjust your conversation. There's no magic formula to this other than just honesty, because you're fooling only yourself. And you're stunting your possibility for growth when you just look at it like, oh, my conversation's great. I don't need to work on anything.
Right.
Sometimes we're in those spots in our life, but just be careful, because that's when God likes to do the humbling time. I think to kind of take off any scary edge of, oh, how could you know their conversation? What about a wolf in sheep's clothing? You know what? I think if you just look at their actions, that will paint more pictures than you could possibly imagine. And as the saying goes, a picture paints 1,000 words. You will be getting entire novels about
if they say,
what their conversation is.
If they say they love the Lord and they're a believer, but they never
talk about God,
talk about
read
the
Bible,
Lord, it's just not,
pray.
Pray. It's always about something else. That would be a big
consistency is another thing.
Yeah. But
we all have bad days, but if it's consistently off on their conversation.
Yeah. And if we're consistently off, then we're giving the wrong idea. And it could be either way. Our speech couldn't match our conversation or vice versa. Like in my case, my conversation looked gruff or intense. And really, I'm a kind person.
You want to believe someone when they're talking to you and they sound so convincing and so sweet and so genuine. But at the end of the day, what you do is what's been habitually gone through your brain, actually grooved into the brain. And that's why it's your reaction to something.
Right.
So that's why you go off of someone's actions versus their words. Because words, you can just pour them out in a second and them sound genuine, but actions tell you what's been actually being grooved day after day, time after time,
right,
into somebody's
or if
heart
they're just
mind.
that you're getting mixed signals, just try and get to know the person a little better or talk to somebody.
So hopefully we brought a new perspective to conversation, kind of gets your wheels rolling on this. There are so many questions you could ask yourself. get other friends to jump on board and have a conversation with you about conversation. It's important in relationships. It will either help you to stay out of ones like, I wish I had known this way back when, or help you in ones that you're currently in to kind of decipher which ones you need to just set aside and which ones maybe you need to work on it a little bit more.
Especially if there is confusion.
Yeah. If there's enough inconsistency that this causing confusion,
yeah, alarm bells.
We look forward to doing episode 11, and we hope that you join us for that, or go look at some of our previous episodes. We are learning as we go. Thank you for being so patient with us and just working with us. So
all right.
We hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next Tuesday in another Conversation Corner video.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.